An almost good deal for Greece, but painful for the rest of the Eurozone? On today's Breaking Views, we focus on the latest IMF Eurogroup agreement to cut Greek debt. I'm joined now by Reuters Breaking Views columnist Neil Unmack. Neil, thank you so much for joining us. I guess, does Breaking Views see this as a compromise, this deal?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we were in a very difficult situation in that the Greek programme was careering terribly off course. Debt was expected to reach 144% of GDP by 2020 rather than 120 expected in the second bailout. That put pressure on the IMF to push for a tougher haircut. That haircut was something which Germany was never prepared to give. It looked like a sort of classic standoff, a bit like it's seen in Reservoir Dogs at the end where everyone's pointing guns at each other. If nobody backed away, then the result could have been explosive. Greece would have been cut adrift. You know, it needs the money. So what has actually happened is that everybody seems to have put down their guns, taken a step back, and given something. The IMF has abandoned the target of 120% of GDP, of debt equaling 127% of GDP by 2020. It's now settling for a lesser target. And the Eurozone has agreed to a raft of effectively restructuring their obligations to Greece. They've granted Greece debt interest holidays. They've surrendered profits on ECB holdings. They've cut interest rates to a very, very low level on the existing bilateral loans. And these measures as a whole do actually involve quite substantial debt relief for Greece.
Do these measures actually pave the way for further deals for countries like Portugal, Ireland?
Well, they don't actually. I mean, they raise the question as to what happens to Portugal, Ireland, potentially Italy and Spain. Will Portugal and Ireland get equal interest rate holidays? Will they get a similar distribution of profits from the ECB's holdings? And that's really not clear at the moment. And that is potentially an item of tension that could, that will need to be addressed at some point in the coming months. But there are other uncertainties at the moment. A key part of this deal is the debt buyback. So there's about 63 billion of Greek private sector bonds left outstanding from the debt restructuring in March. A key point of this deal, which the IMF is insisting on before it releases its funds, and indeed the Eurozone, is that the debt buyback goes ahead and that effectively takes a second bite out of the private sector. That will require investors to surrender about 2/3 of the value of their claim against Greece, which is not nothing. The expectation, we still don't know exactly how big the debt buyback needs to be. The Eurozone has been very clever in not disclosing that. So one suspects that Greek banks, Greek domestic investors can be corralled into actually going along with the buyback.
Basically official sector involvement.
Yes, well, yeah, private sector involvement coerced by the official sector. Then there are some other hedge funds and other private investors who own some Greek debt. So we don't. They will also have to surrender their claim, but we don't know exactly what target the Eurozone is working towards.
When might that come?
That needs. Well, the debt buyback needs to happen very soon. It needs to happen by December the 13th. So we'll know pretty quickly about that. And assuming that goes ahead, then that will pave the way for the Eurozone to restructure its own loans and for the IMF to agree to provide more money. Then, after that, the next stage is or perhaps the key point of this deal is that the Eurozone has written down in writing, has agreed that at some point in the future there will be further debt relief. Now, we don't know exactly what that debt relief will look like or when it will happen, but the idea is once Greece reaches a primary surplus, which will probably be either next year or the year after, probably the year after, there will be further measures taken. Now, so far they've talked about further reductions in interest rate. They've talked about tweaking the way that Eurozone structural funds are provided to Greece, so that's effectively a fiscal transfer by another name. So it may not be a haircut. Everyone is focused on this idea of Greece providing a haircut to Greece, but it may simply be that the principle is forever extended into the future, that other backdoor ways are found to effectively prop up Greece and to avoid the very contentious OSI that people talk about. But the key message is at some point in the future, if Greece does everything that is being asked of it, if it reaches a primary surplus, there will be more relief.
And presumably these contentious questions and issues will be pushed further down the line after the German elections.
Well, hopefully after the German elections, so long as Greece can stick to the programme, can effectively do what it's been asked to do. Yeah. But at least in theory, the problem should go away for a while.
Right. Okay, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much, Neil, from Breaking Views. For more agenda-setting financial insight, watch our US Breaking Views show every day at 12:30 Eastern, 17:30 GMT. I'm Angeline Ong, and this is Reuters.